President Bola Tinubu has intervened again to halt the escalating feud between Rivers State Governor Sim Fubara and his predecessor, Nyesom Wike. The peace deal aims to end months of political turmoil that push the state toward impeachment proceedings and instability. As part of the truce, Tinubu ordered an immediate suspension of any impeachment moves against Governor Fubara. However, strict conditions were set. Fubara must formally recognize Wike as the political leader of Rivers State and defer to him on party matters. Tinubu reportedly warned Wike's camp to halt impeachment plans and allow governance to proceed. The president stressed that political seniority must be respected, drawing parallels to his own relationship with past governors in Lagos State. Additionally, Tinubu directed that candidates loyal to Wike be recognized by the APC for upcoming State Assembly by-election scheduled for February 21st of this year. The issue of Fubara's second-term ambition was sidelined as premature. Well, former Rivers State Commissioner for Employment, Generation and Economic Empowerment, Dr. Leloonu Nwibubasa, joins us now for a conversation about the latest intervention in Rivers crisis by President Tinubu, the realignment of political forces in Rivers, and ADC's chances, as well as resumption of crude oil production in Ogoni land and other accompanying protests. Good afternoon. Many thanks for joining us here on Newsday.
Thank you, and good afternoon to you, Cynthia and Nyeze.
Good afternoon. Many thanks for your time. Well, we've seen the president intervene in the past regarding this Rivers State crisis, and the crisis still exists, and some would even say things got worse. What do you think about the conditions that were laid out regarding this particular intervention for both Fubara and the FCT minister?
Thank you. It is good to look at this conversation by looking a little bit at the history of crisis in Rivers State. First of all, when there is crisis, we need to know who is benefiting from this crisis. In 2014 and 2015, the present FCT minister was Minister for Education, Junior Minister for Education. And of course, we are aware of the role he played between the former Governor Rotimi Chubike-Amechi and the former First Lady Patience Jonathan. He introduced a crisis that rocked the government of President Goodluck Ebele Jonathan, and that cost Jonathan his second tenure. But Wike was the beneficiary because he became governor of Rivers State after that crisis. You are also aware that sometimes in 2018, 2019, Governor Wike, this crisis promoter, also promoted crisis within the APC that led APC not to have a candidate in the 2019 election. Again, in 2023, Governor Wike also promoted crisis in the PDP that led to the loss of the PDP in the 2023 election, and that earned Governor Wike the FCT minister. So someone has been a crisis promoter in Rivers State and has always been benefiting from crisis. So it is not strange that Governor Wike is former Governor Wike is at it again, this time against his political godson, who he placed in Rivers State as a stooge, which he wants to dictate everything he will do as governor. And so whatever agreement that was reached yesterday still places Wike at the apex of deciding what will happen in Rivers State politics. But let me quickly state that it is completely immoral for the President of the Federal Republic of Nigeria to sit in an APC-led government and dictate who becomes the leader of PDP in Rivers State. That, to me, is laughable. How could a party like APC lose such their moral compass to the point that they want to sit in their own party and dictate who becomes the leader of another party? That, again, tells us that they validated the claims from the opposition that the APC want to railroad Nigeria into a one-party state, which of course we will not accept. The ADC is up and strong, and we will diffuse all that they put together to put this country under that kind of situation. So for Governor Fubara, yes, Wike brought him. The Rivers people stood by him. He has torpedoed so many times, surrendered so many times. And so I think he has lost the trust of Rivers people. And what Rivers people are looking at right now is to see a leader that will defend their rights, that will put food on their table, that will clean their streets, that will provide employment for the people. And so Rivers people must begin to look at a new direction of midwifing a new leadership for the state, and not to sit to become the ones that are divided, either to support or to sympathize, yet they have no food on their table, and the economy of Rivers State is going down every day. At the end of the day, Governor Fubara has food to eat. Minister Wike has food to eat, but Rivers people are the ones that are hungry. They are the ones that are suffering. And yet, they've been so impoverished that poverty has been so weaponized that they don't have a choice where to go to. And so it is a very terrible situation that we have seen in Rivers State, and what the APC-led government is promoting in terms of telling us that they are, if the president's intervention has truly followed justice and peace and true reconciliation, I can tell us for sure that there would have been peace in Rivers State for the many times that the president has tried to intervene in the crisis in Rivers State. But because it is not following peace, because there is no justice, because there is no equality, you cannot have true reconciliation. True reconciliation comes when there is truth, when there is peace, and when there is justice.
Thank you for that detailed response, and also just laying out, the historical aspects that have led to this moment. I'm curious as to what you think what feels like a deja vu, where essentially there's tension between the governor and the former governor. Something happens, it gets to a boiling point, then the president has to intervene. This feels like a cycle that's happening in Rivers State. What precedent do you think this sets? The president essentially just, coming in to intervene, to ease tensions, then going away, then it starts again. What precedent is this setting for other states that may deal with their own challenges? Should they also expect the president to just come in and essentially try to diffuse tensions for a limited period of time until it happens again?
Well, clearly, we ought to be practicing a federal system of government where the states are federating units. And so I don't even see where the president has a business to intervene in issues in any state if we practice democracy and the rule of law is obeyed. It is because the system is dysfunctional. The rule of law is not obeyed. The courts are just at the whims and caprices of people who are in power, so they dictate what the court does. You can see a House of Assembly in Rivers State where you see 27 members who wake up in the morning, and then one man dictates their action, tells them what to do, tells them when to sit and when not to sit. So how can the president move into matters like that, except that the states have been allowed to function according to the Constitution, which is not what we are seeing in an APC-led government. The president seems to, at this point, with all sense of responsibility, become a busybody in what happens in states, which ought not to be so. There are so many burdens at the national level where the president should be focusing on how to reduce insecurity, reduce the burden on Nigeria, and look at governance as a whole. Corruption is now at every doorstep of governance. And so how should Rivers State become a model space to experiment what this present government will want to do in other states, as to ensure that the governors in those states are kept in such a position of fear and surrender, so that anytime you can see the people are celebrating that, oh, Mr. President has come to solve problems in our state, when we ought to have leadership in every state that should solve our problem. If the leaders of the states and the governors can no longer solve their problem, and we think that the president should be the bishop and the pope of the entire nation, then we should dissolve the states and know that we are running a government, only have appointees at the subnational level. Where that is not, I do not even think that the president should have business if the law is running the way it ought to be and governance follow the rule of law.
Very well put. Now, some may say that at the root of this Rivers State crisis is political godfatherism. That's where this is stemming from. And you've made, going by what the president said, that Fubara or Governor Fubara must formally recognize Wike as the political leader of River State and defer to him on party matters. That, subject to interpretation, looks like an endorsement of political godfatherism when he even used himself as an example regarding what he's done in Lagos State. What kind of example does this set for those who aspire to be politicians or enter the political space in Nigeria? These kinds of statements coming from the president of Nigeria, more or less endorsing godfatherism.
Well, it is unfortunate that the APC-led government, especially the one led by our present President Tinubu, has continued to set very bad examples. We are in this country when a huge contract that runs into trillion was awarded without due process, and we have a National Assembly that can't speak. We are in this country and we have several versions, revised standard version, new international version of a tax law. In fact, Nigerian tax law is more like the versions of the Holy Bible, where you have different versions, and yet they can't harmonize it. We are in this country and we see several wrong things that has been done by this government. And of course, to tell you that President Tinubu feels that Rivers State is a conquered territory, he has added salt to injury by saying that a sitting governor must always defer to his minister, who as at today, we don't even know whether Barrister Nyesom Wike is a member of the APC or a member of the PDP. Of course, like they said, the PDP expelled him and asked him to leave their party. So you see, when the president is standing by such a man who ought to be about his duty in the FCT, you are aware of several protests that has been taking place in the FCT because of the dereliction of duty from a man that was said to be minister. And yet, instead of the president to look towards service delivery and caution a minister, his greatest interest is who becomes the leader in Rivers State. That tells us that there is more to the president's position in Rivers State than just ensuring that there is governance. And we are afraid that the Rivers State Treasury is bleeding. We are very afraid. The signs are clear. The symptoms are obvious. In Port Harcourt, that used to be the garden city, every street in Port Harcourt today is filled with garbage. Our primary schools are not working. What we hear is that, oh, local government are supposed to take care of primary school. And I'm asking, who is that father that is in his own house and his children are not going to school, and you are blaming that your wife is the one that is supposed to send children to school? And so the president's interest seems to go beyond just politics and administration into the very treasury of Rivers State. And we need to know what our monies are being used for. From the 6 months of emergency rule, we've heard tales. Groups has been calling for the probe of Rivers' accounts from the 8 years of Nyesom Wike, and even up to this moment, there has been no answer to us to say, look, we need to know how our monies are being spent. I'm sure Rivers will have the right to ask the present administration to tell us how our monies are being spent, because we feel that the fight for Rivers State is a fight for the treasury of Rivers State. And that's the concern of the APC. We are aware some of the APC people came in and they promoted Fubara and said, oh, Governor Fubara is not this or that. We are also aware of how much money left Rivers State to promote those statements and those that made statements to support Fubara and the people that went around with him. They've taken their own portion and they have gone. And then we are back in the same circle. So the president's concern is worrisome in a democracy. And we expect the president at this point to be a father. It bothers us when we saw President Bola Tinubu as a champion of democracy. And today, having benefited from that struggle, he is sitting down to put democracy under his two big presidential foot. It is unfortunate, and we are calling on him to have a rethink. It is not late.
Dr. Leloonu Nwibubasa, thank you very much for joining us on Newsday for that very important conversation.